What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer. I just recorded this video and my microphone was not plugged in, so I'm gonna do it again. So what happened was there was new firewall support that came out, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a look at the new cards. Of course, I'm gonna start there. So the new firewall support connects to the Cyberse archetype and as a whole, obviously, but more importantly to the Cynet stuff. It's going all out, and also I guess firewall is kind of becoming its own archetype. So we'll start with the new, big guy, the new Firewall Dragon Singularity. It's a Link 6, which I believe is the biggest in the game now. So it says quick effect. It requires 3 plus effect monsters too, so seemingly very easy to bring out. Well, Link 6 is a lot, but Cyberse is a very special, it's going to be very possible, and you're basically going to be able to bring everything back too. But we'll go over everything as it comes along. Quick effect: you can target cards your opponent controls and/or in their graveyard up to the number of different types of monsters: Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, XE. So what you're going to find out is, or at least from my preliminary, testing into this, Ritual's now very easy. There's a new Ritual monster which I'll go over. Fusion, the Ritual brings out the fusion using graveyard material so basically free. Synchro is very difficult, and XYZ is good. So this is definitely part of the problem, is that Synchro part. But otherwise, you're probably going to get 3. So you get to target cards your opponent controls. It doesn't have to just be monsters, too. So this card is, actually pretty good. It's the general, when I first read it, I was like, oh, this isn't very good. But now the more I think about it, cards your opponent controls or in their graveyard up to the number of monsters. So probably of those 3 of them you control and in your graveyard, return them to the hand. And if you do, this card gains 500 attack for each card returned. It's a quick effect, obviously, too, which is it better be, right? A Link 6. If a monster's card points to destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can target one Cyberse monster in your graveyard, special summon it. And you can only use each effect of Singularity once per turn, because the original Firewall Dragon, if I can find it, is once while it's on the field. This is every turn. Every turn you get 3 compulsory activations for your opponent's graveyard and every card they control. That's a boss monster if I've ever seen one. This is what I love boss monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! And this certainly fits the bill. That is very cool. I'm going to definitely be doing playtesting with this and trying to figure out some decent combo lines for it as well. So there's a few other cards that were announced with it. So this is Cyberse Disabworm. It requires a Cyberse Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link monster. The Link monster is probably going to be one that you're going to use, plus a Cyberse monster. Very generic, very easy to bring out. During your main phase, you can special summon one Cyberse monster from your hand. Then you can make this card's level become that monster's... Oh. I'm stupid. I'm very dumb and stupid. So I was thinking, the new Ritual is a tuner. I didn't realize this the first time I made this video. This is a 6. So what it brings out is going to be a 7, meaning you can go into something like Pegasus Adagnister, or if you bring out, let's say, I don't know, a Phantom. Okay, I'm going to go over this in a second, but this is a level 5. So it becomes a level 5, meaning you can go into a 6. Although I actually don't think there is a 6. Interesting. Because another cool card is the Cyberse Integrator. And it kind of brings out a Cyberse tuner from your hand or graveyard in defense position. And then it draws a card when it leaves the field. There's not a lot of easy ways to make this, but now I kind of see these 2 cards go in tandem. You're going to fusion summon, using Sage, and I'll go over how that effect works in a second. And then you can go into a Wind Pegasus Adagnister, and it's going to give you more interruption. All right. My beef with this new Ritual card is kind of done now. This is a card that's not wasn't part of the newest ones, but this is an OCG card that I think we're getting soon. This is Firewall. All right, did I go over everything? Oh, the important part. I was so excited about that being a level 6. When your opponent activates a spell, trap card, or effect while you control a Link 4 or higher Cyberse monster, probably it will, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard and negate the activation. So it's an extender that is also an interruption in your graveyard that is very hard to interrupt. Well, maybe not right now because everyone's playing those Ishizu cards to shuffle things back. But at the very least, your opponent has a lot to worry about. They're going to have so much interruption that they have to... This card is just tier limit, the worst case scenario. Imagine your opponent mills 3, names at best, and then you shuffle all 3 of them back every single turn. This card was like designed to defeat Tearlaments. But in any case, I don't even know how I got into that tangent. So I was talking about this card and I said this is a new one that came out in the OCG Link 5. Neo Tempest Terahertz. Negate any opponent's monster effect activated during the battle phase, which I guess is like never bad. Quick effect. You can send 1 Cyberse monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard. Oh, that's very good. The Foolish Burial is very, very good. And if you do, this card is also treated as the sent monster's attribute. Okay, also it gains 2,500 attack, so it goes up to 5,500. You can only use this effect of Firewall Dragon, Dark Fluid, Neo Tempest, Terahertz once per turn. This card can make a number of attacks on monsters each battle phase up to the number of its attributes, so probably 2. So 2, I hate that it's attack on monsters, but I almost think you are going to include this. Is what I thought about and when I was trying to record this video before this, in that you're going to only have Cyberse Link monsters or Cyberse monsters in your extra deck. You can't fit anything else generic because you lock yourself into Cyberse so early. So I think that these kinds of cards are actually like in the pool of questions of like, yeah, you might end up bringing these out. And this has like crazy arrows too. Well, I guess when you have 5, there's only so many arrows that aren't filled, but left, right, and this is good to be in the extra monster zone. It's good to be below it. So lots of cool options there. I think this is a cool card. I don't know if you're going to use it, but it's cool. This is the new Protect Code Talker. So 2+ effect monsters, very generic, but it's going to be Cyberse monsters anyways. Your opponent cannot target Link 4 or higher Link monster you control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by battle. Very cool, good things. If you control a Firewall Link monster, you can banish any number of Link monsters from your graveyard whose total Link ratings equal exactly 3. Special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. Fantastic. Fantastic. Opponent's probably not touching this card. It is already 2,300 attack, which is a decent stat line. But, you know, you're bouncing 3 cards per turn. There's probably not going to be any monsters on the field when this bad boy, comes out. I can't get over this. I think this is like one of the coolest cards I've ever seen in my entire life. I love boss monsters. Okay, so we'll go over the new ones, and then I'm going to go over everything else, right? All the Cynet cards, all the main Cyberse cards I can think of that kind of fit into this archetype, and then I'll give my final thoughts at the end. So this is Firewall Phantom. If this card is sent to the graveyard as link material for a Cyberse monster, you can add 1 Cynet spell trap from your deck to your hand, then you can discard 1 card. Few applications for that, for the discard, or there's a few options, I should say. You can banish this card from your graveyard during the end phase of this turn, shuffle 1 Cyberse monster from your graveyard into the deck, which I guess is kind of cool. Now, it's a little sucky because it's level 5, but there's so many ways to bring this out. The original Firewall Dragon brings it out. There is also the Code Talker Inverted brings it out from the hand. I already talked about the Dissa Worm. That brings it out from the hand. So while you're never going to normal summon this, you can actually bring it out too with Defensor. I might as well go over that card too. If this card is sent to the graveyard as link material for a Cyberse monster, you can special summon 1 Firewall monster from your deck. You cannot special summon a monster the rest of the turn except Cyberse. Again, it doesn't matter. If a Firewall monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card instead. So again, I always say like one of my favorite cards are ones that have good effects, and then on top of that, they also include a battle phase based effect. And it falls into that category as well. So these two work really well. This is a good normal summon, of course. You just normal summon, go into like Lingaribo or whatever the case may be, bring out Phantom, but add just a boatload of extenders. That's all Cyberse are, and that's why they have something like a Link 6. So this is that ritual that I was talking about, because before there wasn't really any great targets. And there's tons of ways to search this out. And the main way, I'll go over this before I go over that. So this card has always been good, but there hasn't been good targets for it. So this card says if a monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, and it's also pointing down. So if you have something like Paralytic Seed, great way to trigger that. You can banish 1 spell from your graveyard, add 1 Cyberse Ritual monster and 1 Cynet Ritual from your deck to your hand. And then, if this card is activated this turn, you can target a level 4 or lower Cyberse monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So it goes +2 and really +3 because you're bringing card back. This card's nuts. Cynet Ritual isn't that good, but now that this card exists, and what it does is you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your field and or graveyard including a Cyberse monster. So it brings itself out, which is fantastic. Or it brings out a fusion monster by using material from your graveyard. So basically free. So this is equal to 2 bodies, and those 2 bodies can go into something like, when Pegasus at Ignister, but if you're not really dedicated to getting all the different types into the graveyard, it's just 2 of the materials needed for Firewall Dragon Singularity. It's going to be, you're going to have that at your disposal, just by this 1 card alone, which you can't complain about at all. And the last one here is Cynet Circuit. So you can target a Firewall Link monster you control, special summon any number of monsters from your graveyard to either field so they are linked to it. So this could be... I feel like there's a way to put some crazy shenanigans, like, giving your opponent, like, Ra's Disciple or something like that, So they couldn't use it. I think you could use, like, this is where Ibly kind of comes in, but Ibly's a level 2, so it's just, like, really good for Sprint. It's, like, basically all it is. But I think there's a time and a place where you can do something kind of interesting with that. I just don't know what it is yet. If your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card from your graveyard, return 1 Firewall Link monster from your graveyard to the extra deck. Then you can special summon it from the extra deck. And all of that, the low life point thing is made extremely possible by Heat Soul. Decode Talker Heat Soul, which pays life points to draw cards. And that works really well with this card too, right? You can bring this back, the Heat Soul that you use as material probably for the Singularity, and then you get to just draw cards like 50,000 times, which is always a good thing. So this card is good. This card is very good. Definitely a one of that you're going to want to keep out there. And like over the course of the turn, you're going to use cards like Lingaribo too. So when you bring this back, you just giving yourself interruption, and maybe even more interruption if you bring back Firewall Dragon or just whatever you'd use to kind of go into that material. This is a new Cynet card that was announced. It wasn't announced with this support, but it hasn't come out in the TCG yet. So target one of your banished Cyberse monsters, special summon it. During your main phase, if your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card from your graveyard. The target 2 of your banished Cyberse monsters, add them to your hand. So good in the late game. I think good in just regularly. Maybe a one of that you play in the deck in case you open up a different Cynet spell that you already want. Because you're going to be banishing cards, 1 through Cyberse Sage. And if you just bring back like a Link 2, that's very, very good for going up. So I think this is definitely a card that you're going to want to have, in your main deck. This was the original Firewall main deck card. It's okay. It's really not too bad. If this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a link summon of a Cyberse monster, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. So it's basically Dotscaper, but I feel like a little bit worse. But it's also a level 4, which works a little bit better. When there's attack declared involving your Link monster and opponent's Link monster, you can banish the card from your graveyard, negate the activation, or negate the attack. The original attack of that opponent's monster becomes 0. Also, it's unaffected by other card effects except its own. Again, I think this is probably something that the extra, you would think main deck space is going to be pretty tight because there's just so many Cyberse extenders. There's probably a more impactful normal summon that you want to go for. One of the main staples is Microcoder, which essentially has the same effect as Phantom, but if it's used as, when you go to link summon a Code Talker monster, you can use it as a link material from your hand. And when it's sent to the graveyard as link material for a Code Talker, you get to add a Cynet spell and trap. So potentially adding multiple Cynet spells traps. So I feel like you can probably play them at 1, and if you open one, you get to search the other ones, which is potentially just very, very good. So I do want to go over those Cynet spells and traps, because this searches us. So what does this add to your hand? Cynet Mining is probably just going to run it a 3 of, because it's just a general searcher. Although, I don't know, this card's always kind of wonky, right? You have to send a card, and you have to go -1 to add a card. So, I don't know. This is Cynet Fusion. You don't really need to do this anymore because of the new Ritual monster that's here. Cynet Ritual is one that you're probably going to definitely add because you're going to want to put this part of your combos. Okay, it gets used as a ritual summon for any ritual monster, Cyberse Ritual. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. So this is a 1. Very easy to trigger that off, of course. And if you get to trigger off of Dotscaper, that's, just a little bit more synergy there. If you control no monsters, you can banish this card and 1 ritual monster from your graveyard, special summon 2 Cynet tokens. Can't be activated the turn it's sent. So maybe good, decent follow up, in the future. If your board state gets like super wacky, I don't know. This is Cynet backdoor. Target a Cyberse monster you control, banish it, and if you do, add one Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand, whose attack is lower than that a monster's original attack. Probably not a card that's going to be included. It's just one of those that's been around forever. Cynet Crossbite makes you tribute a Cyberse monster to target a card on the field, destroy it. Good for Mystic Mine, obviously. It has a few implications for Mystic Mine, of course. So, I don't know. Maybe something you side deck in emergencies. Cynet Optimization. If your Code Talker monster battles, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. And then during your main phase, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, normal summon one Cyberse monster. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Cyberse. I don't know. This one's kind of interesting. Like, how important is your normal summon when all of the cards are just extenders? It doesn't. While it seems kind of cool, like, I don't know if it's necessary. Cynet Codec, this is the card that's very good. So if a Code Talker monster is special summoned from the extra deck, which you're going to go into a bunch of Code Talkers, Transcode brings back a Link monster. Code Talker Inverted brings one out from your hand. Decode Talker Heat Soul. Just so many different you're going to be bringing out so many of these. So basically, when you go into a Code Talker monster and from the extra, you get to target one of those monsters and add a Cyberse monster with the same attribute. Like, that's just, you're going to go into so many different ones. So there's Fire. Fire doesn't necessarily have a good target off the top of my head, but going into the other ones like Transcode Talkers and Earth goes really well with G Golem, Rockhammer. This isn't necessarily part of the support they've announced, but it's definitely a must include in my opinion. Because this card, you discard one other Cyberse monster, reduce this card's level by 2, and then you contribute summon 3 tokens. They're Cyberse tokens. And all it does is lock you into Cyberse monsters, which is not a problem. Those tokens can be brought into anything or converted to like any Code Talker monster, or you can use it to just link climb in general. So that's obviously insane what this card is going to be able to do for you. Other ones, this is a light, so I'm sure there are plenty of light Cyberse targets that you can go into, like MathMech Circular, and so on and so forth. Again, you're going to go into so many of those Code Talker monsters over the course of the turn. This is a dark, so Protect Code Talker. Man, there's the applications for this are going to be so bananas. This is Cynet Recovery. If a Link monster you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you probably skip over that one. The 2 field spells just like aren't good. They're like actually just bad, so I don't have to go over those. Cynet Cascade. If you link summon a Link monster, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, use as its material, special summon it. Oh, you can, not your opponent's graveyard. You can target one monster in your graveyard. It's not a bad extender, but it's just too slow, of course. Cynet Regression. If you special summon a Link monster, you get to target a card on the field, destroy it, and then draw one. This was a quick play spell that'd be pretty decent, actually. This is Cynet Refresh. When an opponent's Cyberse monster declares an attack. Okay, well, just skip over that. It's like so niche, of course. I think this was from the anime. This is Cynet Conflict. So this is like the most important one. So this one and the Codec are probably the 2 that's going to stick around. Well, Ritual, of course, is going to be there too. But when a spell, trap card, or monster effect is activated while you control a Code Talker monster. I wish Firewall Dragon was, but at the very least, Protect Code's going to be on the field as well. So negate the activation, banish that card. Then your opponent can activate cards or effects with the same original name as that card that was banished until the end of the next turn. So tons of like really good implications for that when it comes to like Tier Lament for so many different reasons. So this is one of the best counter traps like in the game, I feel like. And just it's Infernity Barrier that banishes. That's about as good as you could possibly get when it comes to a counter trap. So those are the Cynet spells. So I think really going over them, like these are the only 2 that's going to see like true application. I could see a world where Cynet Optimization is, but I haven't seen enough good normal summons in Cynet to kind of make that leap of faith. I talked about Rockhammer, how good this card is. And everything after this is just kind of like cards that I think you should be like somewhat aware of if you want to build a deck like this. Pebble Dog is like when it's normal summon, you get to add or special summon a G Golem Pebble Dog from your deck. So it's a 2. If it's sent from your hand to the graveyard, you can add a G Golem card. The reason I like that is because when you add with Phantom, you have to discard a card. So if you discard Pebble Dog, You get to add a hammer, which is like a really good extension, obviously. This one I feel like is probably going to be cut, though. I think the space is going to be a little bit too tight in the main, but I'm not sure. Circular, of course, has to be a must included. Only locks you into Cyberse monsters. And you're going to be able to combo out. Like, circular by itself is a combo. So if you can just like use circular on top of either as like link climbing or whatever the case may be, this card is of course going to be in there like doing some wild stuff. Parallel Exceed, and this goes for like all Mathmech cards. You're probably going to run a Mathmech engine. This is Parallel Exceed, so it just goes to a link monster. It's either used as a rank 4 engine, it's used as 2 materials for a link summon, doesn't restrict you into anything. This card's bananas. This is a new card that was announced recently. This is Rocket Coder. So if this card is used for the link summon of a Boral monster, it's treated as a dragon, not important. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. If a Cyberse monster you control would be used as link material, you can use this card from your hand as material. I mean, that's kind of like all it does. So, yeah, this is probably not one that's going to be in there. I think there's just better options. One of those being Code Generator. If a Cyberse monster you control would be used as link material for a Code Talker monster, this card in your hand can be used as material. If it's sent from hand or field to the graveyard as material for link summon of a Code Talker monster, you can send one Cyberse monster with 1200 or less attack from your deck to the graveyard. So, no surprise that Firewall Defensor, these cards are meant to work together. You send it to the graveyard in tons of ways to bring back level 4 lower Cyberse monsters from your graveyard. Oh, like the extent, like it's infinite extensions. So very cool that they kind of thought that through. The synergy between these two cards. This is Code Radiator. This one's maybe a decent option, citing second. So again, it can be used from the hand for material, but if it's sent from hand or field, you get to target a face-up monster opponent controls, change attack to 0, and negate its effects. So that's kind of cool. Like if you were to go into like a Code Talker monster using this from your hand, going second, this is like also just an form of interruption while being like a free extender. I can see that being used, but obviously you wouldn't do it, for your first turn. Is this worth the side deck spot? I'm not sure either. One-time passcode is just a free token. It's a free body. Dotscaper. If this card is sent to the graveyard, this has been around forever, you get to special summon it. If this card is banished, you get to special summon it too. You can only use it once per turn and only once that turn. And then you can only use one Dotscaper effect per turn. Okay, so you can't do both. And then you can only use each effect once per duel. But I'm sure this is going to be used. It's just one link material is like, I'm sure, can do some crazy combos like Wicked Kid and stuff. I mentioned Ibly a little bit. There's going to be a format where this is good. It's just not right now. Level 2s are too OP. Link Infra Flyer. This is a free special summon from the hand. There's also the Monster Reborn for Link monsters that points to. So there's just so many Cyberse cards that special summon themselves, which is a good thing, of course. Going over to the rest of the cards in the extra deck, I talked about Integrator kind of, but when it's special summon, you can summon a Cyberse tuner from your hand or graveyard. So it could be very, very good with Sage. And the only thing I can think of that goes with it is something like Link Infra Flyer. So if you can do that, of course, you're going to do some just super crazy stuff, like bring this back from the graveyard and use it as material and all that kind of cool stuff. Proxy F Magician is a Cyberse, lets you fusion summon, so maybe you go into this, the Disworm. Maybe. But this is just one that I thought was out there. I thought this card was really bad, but it's really actually not really bad. So this is Firewall Exceed. So it gains 500 attack times the total link ratings of link monsters linked to this card. This is 3,500 attack, or this is a link 6, so this could potentially become really, really big. But the important part is you can attach 2 materials from this card and target a link 4 Cyberse link monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So you can like bring back regular Firewall Dragon with this and go like into one of these 5s much easier. I see potential here with this card for an enabler to like become a very big body and also to like extend. And it's a good target with Parallel Exceed. I don't know. I was kind of excited to read this card the first time that I did. This one's been out for a while. This is Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid. It's a monster negate, so you place counters equal to the number of different Cyberse monsters, which this becomes much easier now, by the way, just simply because of the new Ritual monster. So you're going to have Ritual, Fusion, and XYZ, like probably like for sure. So every time your opponent activates or when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can remove a card and negate the activation. So it's interruption. I just don't know if you can fit this and Firewall like somehow in a combo. Like going into a Link 6 and a Link 5, like can't be easy. Although fair enough, if you do go into Dark Fluid and then Link Summon again, go into Singularity, and you have Circuit in your hand, you can bring this back. No, it only gets counters when it's Link Summoned, huh? Very, very unfortunate. Although, theoretically, you can go into Dark Fluid. What are the zones? Yeah, left and right for sure. Theoretically, you can go into Dark Fluid and bring back your Singularity, right? I think so. Don't know if any of that stuff is possible, but very, very interesting idea for it. Although, I don't know, it'd be kind of like impossible probably to pull off. But I think this card has a place somewhere, somehow. Regular Firewall Dragon, God, it's literally like one of the best arts. This is one of the best looking cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! So cool, so cool. This is the G Golem stuff. I don't know if it's going to be used, but I like the idea that maybe you can fit this in as like a going second version. Or if you just want to use it, as extenders, Crystal Heart's a 2 that brings back a 2 from the graveyard. So that's a Link 4, right off the bat. So you can go into like Firewall Dragon or... because they're just both Cyberse monsters. Or if you have like one other material, that equals, Dark Fluid, which is really, really good. This one is Cyberse Reminder. It has a good effect. So you can detach material, target a Cynet spell trap in your graveyard, add it to your hand. If it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special in 2 level 4 Cyberse monsters with different names from your deck, but their effects are negated, which does not matter. If you bring out Defensor and like Phantom, you get to just do like way pluses, but it's not a rank 4, it's a rank 3, which is bizarre. There's just not that many 3s. This is like the only one I can think of off the top of my head. So kind of strange. Like the potential for this card is so good, but kind of falls short. Other cards, Heat Soul Talker, already mentioned that. Inverted brings a Cyberse from the hand. Lingrabo is a trap negate. Wind Pegasus Adagnister is a pretty good target, for Cyber Sage and this new Deus Worm. Transcode Talker brings a bunch of stuff back. I talked about that. Axis Code Talker, can't forget about this. Is the best deck to use it in because of how easy it is to link summon. Diplexer Chimera, so you could tribute a Cyberse monster spells. You can tribute 1 Cyberse monster. Spell trap cards and their effects cannot be activated during the battle phase of this turn. Kind of random. If this card fusion summon is sent to the graveyard, you target a Cynet fusion or Cyberse monster in your graveyard. Oh, you can target fusion and a Cyberse monster, add them to your hand. Not going to be used because you're probably never going to use Cynet fusion ever again. And then there's cards like Clock Spartoy, so which also add Cynet fusion. So these two, luckily, like pretty much don't have to be used anymore. But yeah, that's essentially everything I can think of off the top of my head when it comes to these Cyberse cards and the new support. I'm kind of excited about it. I think it's going to be really fun. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I will see you guys next time.